Hello, everyone. It's another Wednesday. It's another 11 a.m. somewhere in the world. Um, so the gamification of training is real. So we've talked about this the last couple of weeks. And today we're going to talk about something, a player that we have not mentioned yet because it's not in my repertoire. And I'd love to explain to you why that is. Here comes the question.
Hi, everyone. So the question is, why do you actually never talk about rotation?
Mhm. Okay. That was a huge one and a tough one, to tough nut to crack. Because I was taught that as soon as you start initiating rotation, whether that's internal or external rotation, let things start to tense up in your body. Like you start activating muscles, you said, like screw your feet into the ground, externally rotate your hips to create whatever tension that is needed there, and same for the shoulder. And I did that for a very long time. Um, and it's not wrong. I'm okay. Here's a fun, stupid story. Imagine 100 dominoes lined up so they can fall like one after the other. 100 dominoes, right? I think starting with rotation is starting at domino number 50. So you see a reaction afterwards, but it's not the full one. That's how I view it. So what's before it? I'm not denying rotation. That rotation is happening. That's I don't have a tinfoil hat on my head. Um, Obviously, we need rotation, and rotation is happening in your body. But I don't think it should be the initial focus. So what I'm saying is we have to unfocus on it and do something else before that. So what is that? The catch 22 in training usually is this. You need better position. So that means a deeper squat to activate muscles to get more tension. But you need more tension to make those deeper positions secure for your body. So you're always bouncing back and forth because you have to squat deeper. But if you squat deeper, stuff starts to hurt. That's literally the problem we're seeing every single day. And I think that's the problem when we start with rotation first. So let me offer you a different perspective. Attention road to rotation. So let's define those words real quick. It took me a year actually, so it's not really quick, but I hope to break it down in like 5 seconds. For me, tension is super simple. Imagine a rope, right? And you pull the rope on both ends. So there's a tensional force that's a vertical force happening. In engineering, tension is vertical force, whatever. Forget it. The only point is it's a pulling force, right? So it's a vertical up and down pulling force. Could also be horizontal, but it's always a pulling force. Rotation is a twisting force, so to speak. That means imagine the same rope and it's being twisted on both ends. Both ends. That's a rotation. Whether one point is fixed and the other one's moving, or both are moving in opposite directions, doesn't matter. It's a twisting force. So what we're actually looking for in training is a combination of both. In engineering, that this is called torque. Torque is nothing but tension plus rotation. So that means at the same time you're pulling and twisting, and that's what actually stability is for, right? This is a mechanical principle, but that's literally what's happening in our bodies. That's how our muscles are shaped. That's how the attachment of muscles are placed on bones. So whenever you start moving, things start to twist, right? But what I'm saying is that twisting is not the first thing that should happen. It's the tension that should start first. Um, how do I know? Well, only from practical experience. So if you stand tall, squeeze your butt. We had this example before. If you stand tall, both feet on the ground, you squeeze your butt, your hips externally rotate, right? By squeezing your booty. So that means tension around. So if I have big thigh bone, my glutes don't get turned on, right? It's the other way around. And especially in movement. So first things first, you have to create tension first. The right tension is going to create the rotation that is needed for the movement, and that rotation and those both. I'm sorry, both of those things are going to be combined torque, which is actually what you're looking for in training. What do we see happening if it's not there? We see bones displacing. That means you start off, you squat down, and as soon as torque is over, your knees cave in, your ankles collapse, your pelvis tilts, your upper spine collapses, whatever's happening. That's the end of your torque road, right? And you cannot regain torque by just rotating. How do I know? If you stand on both feet with your butt squeezed, or don't squeeze your butt, I don't care. There's actually very limited rotation possible in your big thigh bone. Why are people paying so much attention on it? Because it's being tested on you. If you see a physio or a doctor, whatever, they test your external internal rotation of your hips.
Mhm.
But how do they do that? You're on your back, your hips, your legs are in the air, and you just move your hips around. This is not what training looks like, because in 99.9% of cases, your feet are going to be on the ground where you're walking, when you're squatting, when you're doing something with weight in between your hands, right? Outside of handstand walking. That's the only one I can think of. But it means as soon as your feet are loaded, that means your legs are loaded and your hips are loaded. There's very, very little room for axial rotation possible. So that's why I think we should unfocus on that and focus on, okay, which muscles need to create tension, that pulling force, and that pulling force is going to twist bones, and both of it are going to create that torque we're looking for in movement. That's why I'm not focusing on rotation, because rotation doesn't equal tension. Tension plus rotation equals torque. That's why I'm not focusing on it.
So from this, you probably when you coach someone to do a squat, what is the alternative to using cues like rotate your feet into the ground and stuff like that?
Very good question. I think it's way simpler. Um, so let me walk you through the process. So when I'm seeing somebody and I want to teach them a squat or whatever, I think about, okay, big muscles moving the bones. That means bringing them to a certain position. So I have to make up rules for those bones where they can and can't go, and that will secure that the big muscles are doing the right job.
Mm-hmm.
Let me walk you through it. My favorite example, as always, is the box squat. Let's say I want to teach you a squat. I don't want to teach you a squat. I want to teach your hips to go from here to there, like shooting your hips back while using your glutes and hamstrings mainly. That's the only thing I think about. I don't think about um, mimicking a position or movement standards or going below 90. I don't care about all of this. I want you to learn how to move your hips from here back here with moving your hamstrings and glutes. That's all I care about. So I have to set up certain bone rules. That means first and foremost, you have to keep a neutral hip while doing this. That's the first one. If you can't keep a neutral hip while going back down there, we don't have any business talking about using the hamstrings or glutes. So if you're violating rule number one, whatever you're doing afterwards doesn't really matter. And there's super easy ways to do this, like raise somebody up so they can literally keep their hip neutral to a certain point. We talked about this before. The second rule is you cannot let your knee shoot over your ankles. That means at any point of that movement, your knees should stay above your heel or behind it. Not because I say so, but because of the muscle attachment and what's happening to your hamstring once you shoot your knees forward. So what happens? You shoot your pelvis backwards. Okay, so that means the hamstring is attached on your knee, outside of your knee, and on your pelvis. So that means when you're going back, you're bringing it fully on tension. You're using it, right? As soon as you shoot your knees forward, that means you're going to relax that muscle, right? Okay, so I'm not saying you're gonna die if you do this in an air squat with zero weight on it. No, this is not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, okay, this is the process how you can teach your glutes and hamstrings to work fully. Whatever you do with it afterwards, if you're doing ballet or air squats, I don't care. But you have to start at the right point and be as precise as we can, and then you do your KO stuff in training, sports, and your daily life, right? So that's where I'm coming from. So we need the big muscles, big bones to certain positions with certain rules, so muscles can do their actual job, right? I forgot the original question, to be honest, but I think I was pretty spot on.
The question was with the cueing, if you want to avoid always using the same phrases
Yes.
like turn your kind of like rotate your feet into the
Mhm.
ground or stuff like that. Could you also touch on if you were to not coach someone through a box squat but a normal squat, how how does that change?
Mhm. The box squat is a normal squat for me. Why? Because my goal is not to go below 90 or mimic an Olympic weightlifting squat or something else that you've seen on Instagram. My job is to make your hamstrings and glutes work in certain bone positions. That's all I'm teaching you. I don't want them to make that bulletproof. And you do whatever you want with it. You do your Olympic weightlifting squat, you do your whatever, jumping, running, I don't care. As soon as muscles do their job, you can do whatever you want with them, but it's not working the other way around. Because if you're shooting your knees forward all the time, and I guess everybody agrees on using the glutes and hamstrings on your squat, but you're never using them, guess what? The squat is not going to do for you. Strengthen your hamstring and your glutes. So why are we doing that stuff then?
Mhm.
Um, what I wanted to add is it's actually really simple to teach this to new people. um, because there's an element of equipment in here that makes it easier to find the right tension without using a lot of words. So let's do the box squat. We'll take a sandbag. Why do we start with the sandbag? Because if a weight is closer to your center of mass, that means you're going to create more tension towards the inside. This is what we're looking for at first, because this is the natural way of us moving. Why is that? I'm not going to go into details now, but I have it in the book. If you apply tension from above, there's a reaction from from the bottom. It's the third law of Isaac Newton, the law of motion, whatever, doesn't matter. That means the closer you are with the weight to your center of mass, the more you are aligned with your center of mass. That means the muscles on the inside of your body, which will help prevent the knees to cave in, are going to get more used. That's basically it, right? That doesn't mean a barbell squat is bad. It just means the weight, where's the camera? The weight is just on the outside. So that means this vector goes down and up. So you're using more of the outside muscles of your body. Again, this is not good or bad. I think that's just the second step after learning how to do it with the sandbag and strengthening the muscles on the inside. Then you can slowly transition into doing it with a barbell, because that's not the natural way to do it. How do I know? Because we've only been using the barbell for 150 years. And if I'm not completely mistaken, humans have been around for more than 150 years, probably 150,000 years. Whatever the number is, doesn't matter. So until 150 years ago, we used to do stuff exclusively with weight in between our hands.
Mhm.
Right.
And is there, from a practical standpoint, between the sandbag and the barbell, do you use a safety bar, for instance, on the way, or how would you go about that?
Oh, that's sneaky. You try to bring in very complex questions in here, but I like it. There's actually there's I created an equipment hierarchy. So where do you want to start? Weight in between your hands. And at the end of that scale of that hierarchy is the barbell. And there's like whatever, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps in between. For example, neutral bars, because that's a good mix between, okay, you have to pay attention towards the inside, but the weight is still on the outside. So that's a good step in between using a sandbag and moving on further towards using the barbell. I have the full hierarchy mapped out. It's not going to be in there until the second book. I'm so sorry. Um, but there's ways how to structure this for people so they have just an easier time uh, of learning how to squat without 157,000 words plus having to use a barbell, which is horrific. I've maybe mentioned this before, but if you don't believe me, that's totally fine and cool. I don't want to be right. I just want to help people. Let somebody do 20 squats with some weight in between their hands. Could be a kettlebell, could be a sandbag. If you don't have a sandbag, doesn't matter. Grab a 6 pack of water, about whatever, 6, 9 kilos. Hold it here, grab it, squeeze it tight. Let them do 20 reps of squats. Film them. First one's going to be horrible. And over the course of 20 reps, the squat is going to improve. Less caving in of the knees, less caving in of the ankles, less overextension and flexion of the spine. So the 20th rep looks better than the first one. On the barbell, this is the exact opposite. If you use even an empty barbell, people usually can do somewhat of a decent squat with like 2, 3, 4, 5 reps. But after reps 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, things start falling off the wagon. So the 20th rep on a barbell looks 100% shittier than the first one.
But why is that actually? Why is that? Why is there that difference between doing it with a sandbag or anything and doing it with a barbell?
So, because the sandbag helps you find the natural tension that you're supposed to use, because that's how we've been moving for thousands of years. The barbell is the opposite. So that means whatever your tension potential is right now, that is gone after like 5 or 6 or 7 reps using a barbell with the weight on the outside. So once that is gone, that means you cannot use the right big muscles, etc. anymore. That means you're going to default to something else because you've just not learned the skill yet, which is fine. And that's why visually the positions are going to look worse and worse and worse and worse over time. And I hope we can agree on that is not the purpose of training. It's not checking boxes on, okay, I've squatted this way 10 times. No. This is why I came up with the last rep rule. Your last rep has to have less bone displacement than the first one. Otherwise, well, you're working in the wrong direction. That's not a good behavior. And I don't want to reward bad behavior, as in knees caving more in and checking boxes. I want to do the opposite. I want to reward you for having less bone displacement, which is, guess what? Helping you find the right muscles, the big muscles, and you're going to get whatever the word you want to use, stronger, fitter, sweeter. I don't care.
And where does actually something like a machine like the hack squat come into this whole arch?
That's a really good question because I actually thought about this a lot because obviously machine training makes it easier for people to find certain muscles, right? It's there's not so much chaos, that the weight's not free, like it's just safer, right? But that's exactly the element that you're missing on machines. It's that um, creating tension, twisting motion. Your body has to adapt to certain whatever imbalances in your body. So yes, it's the safer way of doing it, and we're using it too. But the machines are somewhere in between, like the sandbag and the barbell. So the machines cannot be the goal of training whatsoever, right? So the goal has to be the hardest thing you can do, which is managing to use the barbell properly as of now in training. So that's what we should thrive for. That doesn't mean that should be your goal, but I want to create the process on how to get there. That doesn't mean you literally have to do it. This is just dependent on you and how much time you want to invest. If it's twice a week, 2 hours, you don't need the barbell, zero. If your life goal is, for whatever reason, to squat 350 kilos with a barbell, well, we're going to build it up over whatever, 10, 15, 20 years, and we're going to get there. My point is, the barbell is not a natural starting point for normal people. I'd love to develop you towards there, and I think it's worth shooting for a higher goal, but definitely not going to start normal people on it.
But also the machine is not for you. It's not like even before the sandbag, for instance. Just
It
to
doesn't matter. This is the chicken and egg discussion. This doesn't matter. Like the order of things, there are certain principles that we have to apply. And for some people, a machine will work better than a sandbag. Honestly, it's always a combination of everything. Because I don't know your starting point. I don't know your imbalances. I don't know what you've done for the last 25 years of your training. So I'm just going to stick with it. What makes you win a session under my rules. That means we have to see measurable progress with less bone development and more involvement of big muscles. If those goals are met, we had
You wanted to say word, but you said without bone development. You meant bone development, right?
displacement. I'm sorry.